So, you want to be a contractor. Ever wonder what it takes to become a contractor? The journey they go on to get where they are now, or the crazy things they see and hear on the job site? Well, you're in the right spot. Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor, the podcast. Join your host, Mike Fisher, as he talks to owners of construction companies from all over about how they got started, how they run their business, and some of the craziest stories they've experienced on their job sites. And now, your host, Mike Fisher.
Welcome to So You Want to Be a Contractor. My name is Mike Fisher. This is episode number 16. My guest today is Micah Johnson, President Clean Roofing. How you doing, sir?
Beautiful day. We're in California, so it's rarely a bad day here in California where we're at. So
yeah, it doesn't suck. It's getting a little warm today too, which is nice. I feel like you need a little color on that background there. You've got the clean room going.
You know, I have my office staff in here, so I have to seclude myself in our conference room, and so it is pretty much a white room with nothing but a few windows in it, and so. I don't think people want to be, if they are watching on video, I don't think they want to be watching sun burn their retinas out in the background. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. I appreciate you taking the time here with us today. Killer jacket, by the way. Got to get me one of those. But let's get into who you are. What got you into this industry and that journey to where you are today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on here as well. So, who I am and what got me here. So, interestingly enough, in my younger years, I was actually an investment banker. And
seems like a logical transition into roofing.
Exactly. And I do not sit well behind a bank or behind a desk. And so when I was about a year into that, and at a point in my life where I was just like, this isn't the right fit. Oddly enough, I actually ended up getting fired from that job because I showed up 10 minutes late, more than 3 times in a quarter. So, yeah. So, but I always have a hard time here at my organization or our organization because punctuality is one of those weaknesses of mine, unfortunately. I have a lot of great strengths, but punctuality is one of my weaknesses. And so I for all my guys, I'm like, hey, I'll let you slide, 10, 15 minutes late, so be it. But on other areas of attention to detail, meticulous, things like that, we're definitely not going to slide in those areas. So anyways, that was in the great state of Washington, and I'd spent some time tearing off roofs and sheeting roofs for my uncle as well. At that point, about a year working for my uncle, and I was 23 years old at the time, and I said, hey, I kind of want to get out of here. I want to go do something different and make something different of myself than the path that I saw myself going down, and moved to California. My uncle had a house in Santa Cruz, and he openly lied to me and told me it was a 15-minute drive from Santa Cruz to San Jose. Well, it's definitely not. It's a half hour to 45 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, depending on the traffic that you hit. And so me not being from California, I definitely didn't realize traffic could be that big of an issue. So I said, okay, great. I'm going to go live in Santa Cruz, and got introduced to my first boss here in California at a pretty large commercial roofing contractor. And this was really probably my first taste into a real construction company that had processes, procedures, and a lot of growth opportunity for me. And so for whatever reason, the owner of that company liked me, invested a lot of time in me, and allowed me to grow and learn. I spent time as an estimator, a salesman, and a project manager at all.
That's what I was going to ask. So did you go in the field or kind of in the office role?
I was in the office. I was in sales. So when they first had me out there, I was going and knocking on doors and whatever I needed to do to to make money. So I ended up spending almost 4.5 years there. And as an estimator, I was on roofs every day of the week. And I just gotten married, had our first daughter, and I fell off a roof, oddly enough.
Oh,
Yeah, slid off a wood shake roof, like November timeframe. It was like wet in the morning,
yeah.
and I jumped
Yep.
up on a roof and just slipped right off. And so, was it bad? That was the third roof I've fallen off, but the first time I've had a kid, and so it really
Kind of
wasn't
changes
bad.
your
Like
perspective on falling off.
what's
Yeah.
that?
Kind of changes your perspective on falling off a little bit, right?
Well, it changed my wife's perspective actually.
Right. Yeah.
And so because she was like, oh, I can't believe you climb up on roofs, and it's like we just get used to it, yada yada. And so, so my wife kind of, I don't want to say she really pressed hard on this, but she really was concerned about me continuing to do that
Right.
because
Right.
if I continue to fall off roofs every couple of
Yeah.
years, then that's going to be a problem. So my wife asked if I could go look for a job that I wasn't climbing on roofs, and so I went and talked to my boss at the time, and he ended up introducing me to a distribution company that I spent about a year and a half with in the Bay Area here. And
Was it like roofing products distribution?
yeah,
Yeah.
so in roofing in California, this is interesting. As an industry, we don't do this as a whole, but in California, we're pretty fortunate. We get these companies that buy in bulk and then hold on to the product, kind of like Home
Right.
Depot for the average
Right. Right.
homeowner or whatever. And then these companies will come out and deliver the products on the roof for us. If you talk to roofers in Washington or Wisconsin or Minnesota or areas like that,
Like, what the
they're
hell
like,
you
they
guys
do
got going
what?
on down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because in a lot of other areas, it's your roofers carrying bundles of shingles, 90-pound, 120
Right.
pound
Right.
bundles of shingles up the up a ladder, and so we're pretty fortunate here. So, anyways, I spent a year and a half there and learned a lot, cut my teeth a lot, made a lot of friends, and that really ended up helping me a lot in my career over the next couple of years, right? And so, I at a certain point, there was some things I wasn't the happiest about how they were going there because I had grown my book of business a considerable amount, and there was a different sales rep that had left and decided to come back to the organization. And instead of going, hey, good job, Micah, they ended up giving some great accounts to this guy, and it was a little bit of a that didn't feel
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that opened the door for me to look elsewhere. I was getting phone calls from recruiters and stuff, and I was just not that interested. And so I got a phone call from a international roofing manufacturer one day, and started talking to the guy. Nice guy, 4 or 5 conversations back and forth about, hey, you should really consider looking at this company if you are open to making a change. And so at the same time in the organization I was looking at, I was contemplating making a move to a different location where I would have been the prime rep for them. And so I ended up making a decision based off of money instead of based off of probably more balanced wisdom
Right.
and
Right.
seeking advice from people around me, because that was not a great fit for me, who I am as a person. The people who can go out and knock on doors of architects and spend all day in a suit and tie. Once again, back in the suit, tie. I should have known better, but the money looked good,
Yeah.
right?
I ran
So
from all those jobs. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
so 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 I spent almost a year there and didn't have a lot of success. First time in my life that I wasn't, really a top performer in my area, or highly highly looked at or in any way. And so
Right.
so
Right.
we parted ways mutually, which led me to a different organization, roof back in the contracting side. Not sure how my wife changed her mind. Maybe I started wearing on her over time, and she goes, "Yeah, you should jump on some more roofs." But back on the
You were
contracting.
probably happier back then. I'm sure she saw that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, it's fun. But yeah, so back on the contracting side with a guy I had made friends with when I was in the distribution company, because he was looking to phase out over time, and said, "Hey, I want you to come learn my company and start taking over." That was his approach to me once he found out that I was back on the market, right? And so I talked it over with my wife, and for me, I'm never one to shy away from a challenge. If you had asked me at the time that I had fallen off that roof and transitioned, do you want to be a business owner? My answer would have been, heck no. And deal with all those people and manage them and all that headache? Heck no. You mean I got to manage a guy like me? I'm not interested in that at all.
Right.
5 years beforehand, but as I was growing as a human and developing skills and looking at, okay, how do I progress in my career and how do I become better at something I wasn't as good at yesterday, that intrigued me. And so ended up agreeing to that. And if he ends up listening to this, I don't know. We still talk. We're amicable, and for me, I respect them. There was a lot of learning there for me from once again going and being a vice president of a company and running an organization and growing it. A lot that I learned there, and have the utmost respect for them. What ended up becoming the theme is for almost the 3 years I was there, the conversations where I was going, hey, remember 3 years ago when we talked, or 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, you said you want me to start taking over. What does that look like? Can you define time frame? Can you help me understand that? And for him, the response was typically, I don't know. I feel good. We'll see where it goes. I don't know. Right. And for me, not being a business owner prior to this, I didn't realize what I was asking this guy to do. In essence, relinquishing what he had built for the past 20 plus years. And so for me, I was going, dude, this is how you lured me in. I had other things on the table, and you said, I want you to take over my company. And so it ended up putting me in a position where I'm going to start my own company or stick with you and take over your company. And so it just didn't look like he was in that mindset of, I want to be closer to letting you take over the organization. So for me, I said, okay, I'm going to go get my contractor's license. Did that, studied at night for 6 months. That was a lot of late night studying and whatnot. And it was probably less scary once I actually took the test than it had been built up in my head to be. It was actually pretty easy test. Odd to me, though, in the California state test, they actually talk about a product called coal tar pitch, which has been outlawed in California since the 80s to install. However, it's still in the roofing C39 contractors test. Very interesting.
That's the way California works, man.
Yep.
It's a funny state, man.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. So that was.
So.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask what about what time frame was that?
That was 5 years ago. Yeah, about 5 years ago, right? Right about now was when I was making that decision of, okay, I'm gonna go get my license, and I still was uncertain if me getting my license, that mean I'm fully parting ways, because he could have walked into the office one day and said, I'm done, I want to retire, here's the business, right? I didn't know. And it's again conversations that were not necessarily, I need to know and give me a direction one way or the
Right.
other. It was like, hey, I'd like to know, and so there was still this, we'll see where it goes type thing. And so anyways, I ended up getting my license, and oddly enough, my now business partner called me about 3 weeks before I was going to take the test and said, hey, I want to take you to lunch. And this is a solar contractor that I had done a lot of work with for the last decade. When I was
Yeah.
on the contracting side to manufacturing side, back to the contracting side, we did a lot of business together. And so he was reaching out to me to see if I had any interest to come aboard and be a sales manager for him. And I was like, no, not really. I'm going this way, and I'm starting a
Right.
business. If you guys want to partner with me, then yeah, let's talk about this. And this is a pretty well established solar company. They're one of the top 5 size wise as far as localized contractors, not
Yeah.
the national players.
National ones. Yeah.
They're one of the top 5 solar contractors. So there's a big, for me as a roofing contractor, there's a lot of built-in business because most of the roofs
Yeah.
they touch need some type of work. And
Something.
so,
Yeah.
so that was a lot of the, that's interesting. I can 100% secure that in and be business partners. And so, anyways, those conversations went on a few months, and I was trying to decide what am I going to name my company, all this stuff, which when you're starting a business, you don't realize it until you're in the middle of it. There's a lot to decide. Like, you got a
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
You got to figure
Yep.
out what type of phone number you're going to use. Are you going to use 800 or are you going to use your cell
Yep.
phone? And all that can have an effect on the perception to the public. And so, there's a lot of stuff in starting a business.
I was going to ask you that too, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit later, but was there somebody that you kind of leaned on for a lot of that advice, right? It sounds like the guy that you were working with for those 3 years maybe wasn't going to be willing to kind of, open up his playbook on how he did everything right for you, because it sounded like that was a little bit trepidatious at that point. But like, was there somebody else that you leaned on to kind of like, yeah, I've got my license now, how do I go about X, Y, and Z? Or was it just a trial and error kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, actually my old boss, the guy that when I moved to California, he knew that I had my license and gave me advice whenever I'd call. He's got like over 1,000 employees, so every time I get a chance to talk to him,
Oh, wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, but he was willing, even after I've left, willing to invest in me. He's a friend of mine. He's
Yeah.
one of the greatest guys I've ever known. And my boss at that time, the one that he was thinking I was taking over the company. I had, maybe this was the right decision, maybe it wasn't the right decision, but I decided that I was not going to let him know that I was getting my license. Because once again, I still wasn't 100% sure when I started getting
Right,
my
right.
license that I was going to be stepping away.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if I did take over the company, either way, I would have had to have taken the tests in order to
The test,
become
yeah.
a contractor in the state
RMO,
of California and take over that license. And so, yeah. So actually, and the other thing too is once I did make the final decision that I was going to partner with a solar contractor, that was also a very nice thing because, for me starting a business, it was like, man, I don't know what to do. I'm going to be running around, putting roofs on myself, and I got to do all this other stuff and grow a business. And so my business partner and I, it was nice to have that because
that immediate influx of revenue and jobs.
Well,
yeah.
Well, also the been there, done that because
Right.
Maybe it was probably worked up more in my head than it needed to be, but it still was like, these guys, because I have 2 business partners. Sorry, these guys have been there and done that, and they're one of they always fight back and forth between number 1 and 2 in the nation for top solar installers as far as reviews. And so this
Yeah.
is like somebody who, like, okay, they understand how to create an operation that services the customer right? Which is a lot of the reason that I was thinking, okay, I might step away from this contractor as well, because there, not like there was any ethical things that were done where I had to question my ethics. But there's definitely things that were handled in ways that I said, I don't think I would treat somebody like that, right? I feel
Right.
like I would have
Right.
treated them differently. And so, I think for most people who start a company, they think, I want to do it differently, and I want to make my impact
Yep.
on this marketplace. So anyways, that gets us to starting Clean Roofing 5 years ago now. And so we started off with 5 guys. 2 of them are still here today. The other 3 were a little more reluctant to grow as the organization that I wanted to build. And so I helped 2 of them find their own home. And after we kind of said, hey, we're going in a different direction, right?
Yep. Yep.
And one of them already had a place to go, but the other 2, they're still here, right? They were good core guys that we had to have at the time to start a roofing business, where I was out, beating the streets and hustling and ordering materials, pulling permits, doing all the components to running a construction company. And so within 6 months of starting, it was time to bring on another crew. And so then we added another crew. And then within that first year of starting, we added a 3rd crew. And at this point, I'm running around working 7 days a week. And my wife doesn't see me. My kids see me every now and then, like Saturday nights and Sunday nights and stuff like that. Otherwise, I'm running. If you want to roof, I'm there. If there's a street we're working on, I'm knocking doors on Saturday and Sunday to make sure that I'm growing the business. And it did allow us to grow that way. And it was definitely a sacrifice. My wife has been the biggest blessing to me through growing this business than I could ever imagine, because she understands, go do what you need to do. I got this, right? But then also, as we've gotten to this point, really in the last year, my wife says, hey, it's my turn now to get some of that attention.
Back in. Yep.
So
yeah, no, there's definitely something to be said for obviously, having that relationship and that groundwork and being able to have that influx of business is definitely, I mean, there's a burden there too, right?
Yep.
I mean, you've got to find people to do it. You got to find time, and obviously, stretch you kind of thin. And the flip side of that is not having that, and now your burden is, how do I find the business, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm out, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, knocking on doors, trying to find the business. So definitely, burdensome on both sides, obviously just a little bit different. So going through that rapid growth, right? I mean, especially having never run a company or own a business or, the whole back office stuff, right? I mean, from payroll to accounting to all that kind of stuff. I mean, again, when you just start and you don't have one of those relationships, you have time to kind of maybe screw that up a little bit and figure out how to do it on your own.
Yep.
But I mean, you started, running from the get-go and don't really have that luxury. Was that something that those business partners kind of helped you out with and said, hey, here's where you need to be, here's what you need to be doing?
Yeah, I got
kind of getting you set on the right path.
Yeah, that once again, I was very fortunate to attach myself to my business partners, because
well, I mean, I'll stop you for a second, because you'll say fortunate, right? But it also came from years of creating relationships and doing what you're doing and being good at what you do, right?
Yeah.
So I think you created your own luck there, if you want to call it luck, or fortune or whatever it is, because I like to make sure people take credit for what they do, right? And I'm the same way. Like, when something quote unquote falls in my lap or looks like it falls in my lap, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't understand that, there were years of relationships and networking and hours on end creating those opportunities.
Yeah.
So, but moving on. So
yeah,
I just want to make sure you don't discount yourself, because that there was a lot there. It wasn't just luck for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But that may, depending on who you are, there's really like three different types of contractors, right? Are you the sales guy and then you hire the
Right.
people
Yep.
in the back office? Are you the operations guy and then you hire the guys in the crew and then hire the salespeople, right? Or are you the field guy and then you need the salesperson and the office people, right?
And the
Now,
office.
once
Yep.
again, depending on the size, there's certain, if you're doing one job a week, it's pretty easy to do that, right? And handle a lot of that stuff, but still it's messy, especially if you're swinging a hammer. Because
Yeah.
the first year I was swinging a hammer multiple times a week, right? And it doesn't look like it now with my double chin and everything else going on here. But I was working with the guys. I was cleaning up job sites, putting roofs down, because all pennies in my pocket. The quicker I can get that stuff done, and
Yep.
and so that was tough getting to the point and having a mentor, my business partners and other business owners that I started to meet along the way and network with, right? And this is once again what really was a big benefit to me was really my time in that distribution company, because I was able to meet other business owners and
Yeah.
call on them as well and say, hey, I'm having this problem. What do you think? Some of them were like, hey, you're my competitor now. Screw you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. But other guys who I think, those guys that were like, screw you, I don't want to talk to you. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's also a value in being somebody, if somebody calls you and it's like, hey, I want to bounce something off you, it opens up a different relationship that can benefit you as well, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't see a benefit in having friends that are their potential competitors. If you see, hey, we're bidding against jobs together, okay. But then also, what happens if you get put in a pickle and you need to call somebody? Who are you going to call? If
Yep.
you're like, hey,
Yeah.
screw you, I don't want to deal with you because you're my competitor, you got nobody to call, right? And so,
Well, and also what it does is it betters the industry as a whole,
Yeah.
right? Like if there's a bunch of you guys out there that hate each other and are doing, maybe less than ethical things or less than, should be done from a customer experience standpoint to make sure you get more jobs than the other guy because you're out to get them. All it does is hurt the end user,
Yep.
right? The customer in the end. Whereas if you guys all are bouncing ideas off each other and making sure that you guys are getting better and knowing that I have to, be a better at customer service, right? To win these jobs and not necessarily just do the conniving things and those less than questionable things. It just makes the whole industry better.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when it was time to get a sales reps, I went to 3 different roofers that I had good relationships with, and I said, hey, what do you pay your guys? How do you pay them? Here's how I'm thinking of paying them. And if we paid them the way that I was originally thinking of paying them, I don't know if we'd have sales reps today, or
Right.
maybe it was
Right.
too much. I honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember if I was surprised what they were getting paid and brought down what I was thinking of paying them or pushed it up, right? And so that was a big help because these other companies, they have sales reps that have been there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so when you can retain employees for a long time, that really speaks to the organization and culture of that organization typically.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So,
From a growth standpoint, the field labor, I would have to imagine was probably one of your biggest struggles, and growing as fast as you did, that struggle was only magnified. I'd have to imagine, right? Because
Yeah.
most contractors, if they grow at kind of a little bit of a steadier pace, they have time to either develop people or work on relationships or referrals from their current employees. But I mean, it sounds like you guys had to add 2 or 3 crews within the first 8 months to a year. Like what was that challenge like for you? How did you overcome that? Where did you find people that you were willing to put on a roof pretty quickly?
My main foreman
Yeah.
that I brought over is responsible for everybody. So I have eight crews right now, and my main foreman brought over 5 in essence, 5 different guys. They come work underneath him, and then we
Right.
would okay, we're going to break you off, and then give my main foreman, another group of guys that are coming up, and train them, and then okay, you go over here, and now we have another crew and whatnot. And so one of the other big things that I felt when I started the company is, and I treat all my employees like this. This is our company. It's not my company, right? This is
Right.
our company. This is our destiny, that we get a chance to write our names in the stars, or whatever you want. You can call it, weird, or look at this guy who owns a roofing company, write his names in the stars. Well, there's companies in the world that you don't think are gonna change things, like a car company like Tesla, right? They're a disruptor, right? There's companies in our marketplace, in every marketplace, that, hey, why are they always the guy that every homeowner knows, and why do they go to, right? And to me, I think it starts with your employees. You can't be the culture and the reason by yourself as a business owner, especially as you get to a certain point. And one
Yep.
thing that I feel very strongly about is, as you're growing, people may not grow with you anymore. And so having those conversations of, here's where we're going, can you get on this board page, or are you going to go a different direction? And having that open dialogue. I've fired 3 people. Beginning of last year, we had 44 employees. To give you an idea of how big we were. And right now we're at 30. We're at 36. We had,
Which, I mean, for a roofing company is pretty massive. I mean, that's
it's big.
well. So I come from the insurance world, right? So insurance is a pain in the ass for you. I know that,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of roofing companies are, well, I'm gonna stay under the radar, and I'm gonna have me and maybe one guy I pay 1099, so I can avoid a lot of the insurance nightmares. And then there's, obviously the bigger ones that find a way to overcome it. And you're definitely on track for that, right? I mean, there's very few roofing companies out there with 4 or 5 employees for a very extended period of time, right? Because at that point, it's a lot from an insurance standpoint, from a cost standpoint, but you only got 5 guys, so are you really getting enough revenue to kind of offset a lot of that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about how how we grew and whatnot, and my point with the direction of the company was, I decided I wanted to make sure these guys were well taken care of. Roofing is not the funnest job that you could think of, especially over the summertime when it hits 100 degrees.
Yeah, I was gonna say August and July on the top of a black roof.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is. That's when we see the fallout. It's really easy to put a roof on in December, February, March, April in California. I know there's probably, if there's roofers listening going in Wisconsin, they're going, they roof in December. Oddly enough, December is one of our busiest months often, because we're partnered with a solar company, so everybody's trying to get in their rebates. If it's not raining in December, we're roofing. And like last December, we were just 2021. We had roofs happening up until Christmas Eve, the day after Christmas. I had some of my roofers were going, well, I want to roof. Is there new construction we can do on Christmas that isn't going to tick people off? And I really had to say, no, we're not doing it, because I didn't want to deal with that.
We are not working on Christmas.
I didn't want to deal with that phone call of a homeowner, a neighbor going, hey, I don't want to hear this. This is Christmas Day. Get off that roof,
Right.
And so that just was the thing. So anyways, when I started the company, I knew I was going to pay our guys more than what they were getting at the time, and because I felt like, hey, if you're really doing hard work in this area, especially where we live, I live in the Bay Area, it's really expensive to live here. And if you're not making, you're actually, I want to say, if your household income is less than $150,000, you're considered low income in the Bay Area. And so
in the Bay Area.
All 8 of my foremen are going to be very close to making 6 figures, if not over, this year. And I had 5 of them over 6 figures last year. but I get it in the results. I can call those guys Sunday night at 12 o'clock. Hey, I got a problem. I need you to go here. And they pick up,
Yep.
and they go. Now, every now and then I might call them, and they say, hey, I've had a few drinks. It's Saturday night.
Yep.
Call somebody else or whatever. But it also shows in how we get our reviews. Our foremen go talk to our homeowners. They go make friends with them, and they're there for the customer experience, right? I
Yep.
want our brand to be viewed as an organization that we go to them because we know they're going to take care of us and not only put on a good roof, but they're going to communicate thoroughly to us. I think most times in construction where a homeowner has a bad experience, it's really probably not because the contractor did a bad job. There's definitely times when they are, but it's more that they didn't do
Lack of communication.
Exactly. It's
Yep. Yep.
it's that they didn't set a proper expectation. And so as we've brought in operations people and project managers, and then our inspection guy that goes out and does all our final inspections, the biggest thing that they're hammered home on is set the expectation before we have that problem. And so it's a pretty rare
Yep.
day right now in my life that I get email that is a customer wanting to have answers. It's a pretty rare day. It happens. Every contractor is going to deal with it,
Yep.
especially as
Yep.
you grow and have other people doing things. It's very easy when it was just me pulling permits, doing all that stuff. I knew what was going on with everything, right? And still, I still know what's going on with 90% of the time where my guys are at in our conference room. I see where all my crews are, the names of their jobs. I pop in and say hi and introduce myself to homeowners. We have 7 sales reps now, and I might never have met this homeowner, and I pop in and say, hey, I'm Micah with Clean Roofing. I just want to say hi, see how you guys are doing, check the crews, make sure that they're doing what we expect, and that's what has been wonderful about the growth as well, is that now some of that really busy work has been able to come off my plate, but now a whole different set of
Right.
things has fallen
Well,
into
now
play.
it's more about, kind of like you said, that top-down culture, right? Kind of maintaining that culture and that communication and kind of being the leader there rather than, the guy with the tape measure and the hammer and knocking on
Yep.
doors, selling stuff. You're the guy kind of leading the ship from a culture standpoint, which is right where you need to be for
Yeah.
sure. What obviously when you started 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of that business was coming from that relationship with the solar guys. Is that still where most of your business comes from? What are you guys doing from a development standpoint to kind of get new business?
So the first year it was about 58% came from the solar business. I've been in the roofing industry for a long time, so I had referrals coming into me still.
Yep.
Contractors that said, hey, Mike, do my roof, stuff like that. And so there was almost 60-40 split there, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought it would have been less,
A little bit
but
higher.
once again, as I kind of stepped out and just said, okay, here goes the parachute, I'm out on my own now, it wasn't as daunting as I had expected, right? Because there was a lot of people who said, great, support Micah, friends and things like that. And once again, contractors. And so the next year it was actually 45%. I could pull up, I like to run calculations. It's been 2 years since we ran calculations on it, because I was curious if because if it was 100% came from the solar, then we need to work on getting our name branded so that people go, hey, I want to use Clean Roofing, right? And so it slowly started to dwindle down and down and down, but it's also, that's a tough scale to compare it to when, our first year we only did $1.3 million or 1.6, 1.35 or something like that. And then the next year we doubled. And so, and then we doubled again, and then we added another 40%, and this year we'll be not close to doubling. I'm really focusing on, making sure all of our operations team is running smoothly. I really don't, at the point I don't care about getting bigger. I want to get better, and so.
Right, more
Yep.
efficient.
I
Yeah.
don't. I hate to say this, Mike.
There's two different ways to create more revenue at the bottom line, right? I mean, you can either create that top line and keep the chaos and that top line just keeps growing, or you find a way to become more lean and more efficient. That top line stays the same, and the bottom line gets a little bit better.
Yep. I forgot your original question there, and I went off on a ramble, and I was going, what was the
Just
question?
kind of how you're
Sorry.
generating your business.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
you're good.
Yeah. So
we've got all the context there now.
Sorry, I answered the question.
No, you're perfect.
What was the question? Yeah. So I haven't run the ratio in the last 2 years, but I imagine we're probably around 20 to 30% of the business comes from the partner, which is, to me, I think that's a good balance where we've created a brand, we've created a name, we have advertising that works for us, we have a good reputation, which is utmost.
That's the biggest piece of it, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's the most important.
I mean, you could spend thousands on putting your name out there, but if people don't like you and your name's not worth anything, then you're throwing that money in the trash. So, obviously, I mean, I have to imagine the culture and how you guys, interact with your clients and all this kind of stuff is part of that branding and creating that name and reputation for yourself. Where do you guys focus the marketing efforts? Where do you see most of your successes in that avenue coming?
So,
because I'm pulling up, I just asked it. I'm pulling up your Instagram right now. I've got your Facebook. Neither are like spectacular, right? I mean, you're there, which is for a contractor, that's step one that I think a lot of contractors aren't even there, right? A website, an Instagram, a Facebook, those kind of things. So where are there other avenues you guys are spending marketing dollars that are working for you?
Yeah, this is a 4-letter word here in our office, but we do.
Yep.
And it is a 4-letter word.
Yep.
So I just, Yelp is great. It does kick around a good amount of leads, but it's also, there's a lot of thrash that comes from Yelp.
Right.
And then, anyways, I have opinions about the whole Yelp process myself. That's whatever. Google AdWords as well, or Google Leads, or something like that. We have a company that does posts on Facebook and Twitter and some other things like that. So So
you have a third party that kind of handles a lot of that.
Yeah,
for
I give
guys.
her content every month. I say, hey, here's a roof that we did. That's something really unique, or here's a story, if you will. So we do these little focuses or spotlights, and we go through the process and tell them about the customer's experience and whatnot. And sometimes we'll loop in a customer for that. But we interestingly enough, we had a lot of generic growth for the first 3 years. I spent it was about $2,600 in marketing, and it was more just for the Facebook and Twitter and presence and stuff like that. In 3 years, $2,600 in 3 years.
Wow.
That's all I spent. And so then the beginning of last year, we said, hey, we want to, we're getting to that point where we will need to rely on some advertising and just can't rely on generic growth. Generic growth being new contractors we brought in, relationships with contractors, word of mouth, things like that. And so, so we spent about $18,000 last year, playing with some of the different Google and Yelp and whatever else there is out there,
Facebook and all those other things.
And so that way we have data. What gets us an opportunity? Somebody giving you their phone number on Yelp does not mean they're going to schedule an appointment with you. They might say, you can't give me a price over the phone from your hip, and you're like, I don't even know where you live, man. And so they might say, well, we'll call you back or whatever it is. And so then, we take the way that we do it, we take in the lead, and then we transition it to an opportunity once they schedule an appointment or at least give us their data. And then once we have the appointment, that's what we put a lot of weight on, where, hey, we did a presentation for them, and now we did or did not sell it. And so that's where, a lot of my focus is now that I'm not 100% or 80% on operational, I'm at 40% over there, and the rest on sales and other other things in the company. And so I'm trying to figure out how do we have a higher ratio of transition there? How do we find out, what made a customer say no thanks? Because the nice thing about roofing is you got to have a roof. There's no,
Right.
if you're talking to a roofing company, it might not be this year, it might be next year, it might not, but within the next couple of years,
Right.
you got to have a roof. And the greatest thing about our industry, I feel, and I know you do not just roofing, but you do construction in general. With roofing is something that every trade relies on. Maybe concrete, not necessarily, but every trade
Yeah.
has got to have a good roof above, your sheetrock. Well, if you hang sheetrock before you finish your roof, you're going to have some problems there. Electrical,
Yep.
plumbing, carpentry, framing, all that stuff. If your roof is bad, you're going to have a problem, right? And so the nice thing about roofing is, we get the opportunity to really protect everything of value to our homeowners. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, so marketing.
No, I love that. I mean, I think it's cool that you guys are putting some effort, or whatever it is, into, kind of creating that brand, right? Especially online. I think, and I don't know what your breakdown is of residential versus commercial. Are you guys obviously mainly residential? Do you guys do any commercial work at all?
We're probably close to, currently we're probably like 70-30. 70% of it is residential, and 30% is multifamily or commercial warehousing space.
So, I mean, on the residential side, even if somebody does find you on Yelp, there's a good chance they're either going to your LinkedIn, or not your LinkedIn, your Instagram or your Facebook or your website, and checking out something, right? I mean, it's so not having that stuff up there, or having that stuff up there, not that it always, because I think from a contractor standpoint, a lot of the mindset of most contractors is ROI, right? I'm going to spend money. How do I make the money? If I spend this dollar, how does it come back to me, right? And with something like Instagram, especially, right? I mean, I don't know that there's many contractors out there that are clicking post and getting phone calls saying, please come do work for me, right? More of it is getting your name out there, letting people see how you do what you do, kind of, portraying your culture out there so people understand what kind of company you are. And that way you've got kind of a digital business card or a digital resume out there when people do look for you. Not necessarily that they're going to call you up because they saw your latest story on Instagram and want you to do the roof, but more that it's, oh yeah, I've seen those guys, I've heard of them, and now I do need a roof, or if I do, and you come up, and then I look up your Instagram, and I get to see all these different ways that you guys might be the best job for me. I think it's definitely turning a corner in this industry for sure. I mean, you said if you asked yourself, when you were up on roofs, if you'd ever own your own company, you said, hell no. Same kind of concept, right? If you asked yourself 15 years ago if you'd have to worry about your Instagram page for your roofing company, you probably would have said, hell no. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Not something that you would had to worry about back then for sure.
Yeah.
So what's the go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's something actually that I as a contractor, is probably an area that I should focus on a lot more, is me being present, or my team being present on those venues, because we have always had them, and so we have a lot of people that will follow or like or whatever, and so old customers, past customers. I get commercial roofs off of people that, hey, you did our roof 3 years ago. Our company's
Right.
putting a roof on their
Exactly.
building.
Yep.
Do you do commercial roofing? And heck yeah,
Yep.
we'll definitely help
Yep.
you out with whatever you need. And so, be keeping relevant and present there. I'm not a marketing guy at all, but what I do understand there's marketing and advertising, and then there's branding. And so,
Right.
once you
Right.
become a Tesla or once you become Nike, you don't need to market anymore. You need to stay relevant, and you need
Right.
to stay in front of your
Right.
consumer, and that's branding, right?
Yep.
When you're a brand new, like Rivian, that electric car company, they're
The
still
truck. Yeah.
marketing. They might, if anybody here works for Rivian, I don't mean that as an insult, but um, they're still marketing. They still want somebody or a consumer to go, huh, what's this? Let me click on that and
Yep.
find out. Tesla doesn't need to do that anymore.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's
Right.
we have Tesla in our roofing space, and they don't talk to their homeowners. If you're a homeowner and you want a Tesla roof, you go on their website, give them a deposit, and then they might get back to you, right? And
Right.
so it's like, man, I wish I had it that easy to go sell, But it's
Right. Right.
interesting to me that as consumers, like you'd rather go to a Tesla instead of like the professionals that are
Right.
roofing companies. Tesla does a great job marketing, but
Yeah.
that's where it's again for us, like I mentioned earlier, like we want to be an innovator in our space where people will just come and
Yeah.
say, hey, you do a great job putting on a roof. I don't even need to like question that. I've seen you guys around for 100
Yeah.
years. You guys got
Yeah.
your yard signs in, your trucks are clean, your guys wear, I make all of our guys wear branded
Polo
apparel,
shirts.
right?
Yep.
I can't
Yep.
tell you how many times my guys
Yep.
are at Safeway, whatever. Hey, so and so's going to call you. They wanted a new roof, right? And I spend more money on apparel than I think most contractors my size would do, but it's paid off in spades. I get
Yeah. No, for sure.
10 to 15.
Well, it's that branding thing,
Yeah.
like, right? I mean, yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think it's humanizing it too, right? Like when you go back to somebody saying without question, I want you to get my roof because I know who you are and I know what you are and I know what you guys do. It's humanizing, right? And I think back to, I'd have to imagine the guys that you have as foremen or even the guys that are up on roofs. I mean, they're probably of our generation, right? I mean, they're not unfamiliar with Instagrams and how smartphones work. Where I mean, you could almost just give these guys your logins, right? Or have a login for your field guys and say, hey, take a quick video every once in a while. You're up on a reef, like, show what we're doing, right? And it's that simple where you don't have to think about it. And you're kind of, like I said, kind of bridging that gap between the consumer and your, field labor, so that they kind of feel a little bit more connected to that. Because I think that's the world we live in right now, right? People want to feel more connected and want to feel like they understand, and rather than just pick up the phone out of the yellow pages and calling you to have them come to a race.
Yeah, especially if they've seen the foreman
It's
that
definitely
ends
a
up
different world.
doing their project.
Yeah.
They're like,
for sure.
oh,
Yeah. No, I saw
you
you.
did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
Yeah. It's a crazy world, but it's fun to be in. And that's why I like doing this too, right? Like I started doing this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it's something that a contractor probably never would have thought of doing a few years ago. And so it's fun to kind of be pushing that envelope a little bit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does the future look like for you guys? Where are you headed from a growth standpoint? Geography, revenue? What's first on the list for you guys?
I'm always going to focus on performance. And there's a saying that I heard, and I repeat it all the time to my guys: never arrive. Meaning, if you think that, hey, if you ever come to a day where you go, we've accomplished all we needed to accomplish, you are totally, probably 100% in the wrong. There's always something
and you're
more.
done probably. That's where the ship sinks for sure.
Always something more that you could be doing, right? What could you have done better here, right? And it's definitely not my phrase. I picked that up from a different roofing contractor, and in the area who had a plaque and everything made that said never arrives, right? And so when I heard that, it just resonated so strongly with me, because it's always a pursuit, not necessarily of perfection, but of betterment. How can we be better than we were yesterday?
Right.
I don't ever think that there's perfection in almost anything that we do, but we can always be better. And so so as far as our organization, we are really focusing on making our operations so streamlined and so smooth, and everybody knows exactly what they're doing. Customers have the best experience possible. And once that, and as we're growing in that area, I feel the experience with customers, the reputation, the branding will grow the company generically, where we'll have to say, okay, we need more crews, we need more salespeople, we need more office people. As of this moment, I really don't see the need for us to push hard. We'll probably end our year at about $10 million as a contractor this year. But I'm not, I don't care if we hit 9.5 or 9. I don't care.
Right. It's about being efficient and doing it the right way.
I mean, yes, if we land at $3 million, then financially we definitely have some issues based off of what we're budgeting for.
Right.
But that's our focus, is how do we get to this point in operations where our operations is so seamless and smooth that it's easy for our sales reps to go sell. We can attract sales reps from other companies real easily that says, hey, I'm having a hell of a hard time selling for this company because they have a crappy reputation. I'm a good sales rep. Can I fit in your organization? And so, that's our big focus in probably in the next 3 years, is really making sure that that's where we're at, right? And beyond 3 years, I imagine we'll be a $20 million contractor within the next 5 to 10 years. But once again,
and do you think you do that staying in the Bay Area, or is it it something where you'd have to kind of?
We'll do that staying in the Bay Area. I don't currently have a lot of desire to move into other markets, but the right person comes along and says, hey, I have been here for X amount of years, I'd like to move. What do you think about starting up a different division, 300 miles away? And if that's the right scenario for us, and we can, make sure that from head down organization.
More if it happens organically, cool. If not, don't need to push it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Definitely not looking to be more than localized currently. And so, does that? What other questions or thoughts haven't I? I've done a lot of talking. I bet when people think.
No, these work out a lot better the more you talk and the less I do. So it's been absolutely amazing. That's usually kind of where I wrap it up with, is that where you're headed. But I mean, it's. I always want to give you a chance to kind of, let people know where to find you, whether that's, again, phone or Instagram or website or whatever it is, so they can reach out to you.
If people want to call me or website directly, cleanroofing.com. Funny story about cleanroofing.com. When we started the company, we were almost not Clean Roofing. Somebody had bought the domain name and wanted to hold it hostage for us, and it ended up costing us $10,000 to have that website. Otherwise, we would not be Clean Roofing. So once again, those little startup things that you go, man, I can't believe this. So cleanroofing.com. If you're a contractor that I guess wants to ask some questions of me, is it okay if I give my cell phone out, or? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It's up to you, man. I don't care.
If you want.
I'm not a Joe Rogan here, right? I'm not having millions of views, so you're not going to get tons of calls. But
my direct cell phone's 408-690-6500. Pretty easy. So if you ever have questions, you can definitely call me, and I might not pick up. I get I'm on the phone about 6.5 hours a day, according to the little call log that shows me every
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
But
Every Sunday. Yep.
yeah. But I will call you back if you leave a message and let me know who you are and what you're calling for. And don't tell me that you're trying to sell me an auto warranty or something like that, because that
Warranty.
will
You extended
probably
warranty.
go unreplied to. So
That's and you touched on it a little bit. I mean, that's kind of one of the best unforeseen byproducts of doing this. I was actually on the phone a little bit earlier today for one of my podcast guests, probably a year ago, and just having a conversation, and ended up kind of thinking of another guy that I had on the podcast. And I said, you know what, the two of you need to get connected, and so kind of introduced the two of them. So that's that little I say little, it's 170 people now, but that network of people and that group that has been created, it's been fun, and being able to connect people.
Cool.
So I'm glad that you're open to that, because that's kind of how I live my life, right? I'd like to know everybody. That way, if you need somebody and he needs somebody, I can connect you guys, and that's the way I operate for sure. So it's Micah, this has been awesome. I look forward to staying in touch for sure, and following you guys where you guys are headed, and if I can ever be a resource for you, obviously don't feel afraid to reach out to me, and looking on the future for you guys, man. I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm on number 12 right now, podcast.
Oh,
so
nice.
I haven't
you're almost caught up.
all the way to the end.
I think you're going to be number 16, so you gotta, you'll be caught up pretty quickly.
So awesome. Thanks so much, Mike.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate
the opportunity.
No, it's been awesome.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you had a good time, be sure to hit that subscribe button to get all the latest episodes. And if you had a really good time, leave a review to let us know what you thought. Until then, go gather some crazy stories on your job sites, and we'll see you next time on So, You Want to Be a Contractor.